Hey Vault Hunters, JB here, and today I'm sharing all the new Bloody Harvest DLC info. Be sure and subscribe and hit the bell for more Borderlands 3 videos just like this. Today, the first post-launch Borderlands show aired and shared tons of new info on the first content drop for Borderlands 3. So we're going to dive into everything they shared, but first I want to start off with the most important information, just everything you need to know right off the bat. Before we get into it, I want to let you guys know there's a new shift code for a golden key just around the Borderlands show, and this only lasts until Sunday night, I believe. So for the next 4 days. That means if you try to redeem it afterwards, it won't work. So I've linked it in the description below, along with the link to the Shift website. Log in there, drop the code in there, and redeem it for your platform. Go to the mail portion of the game in the social tab, and you'll have your golden key. Bloody Harvest is coming in October. There's no firm date yet, but it should come out right before Halloween. And of course, it follows a spooky Halloween haunted theme. And if you bought Borderlands 3, this is included for no extra charge. You're not paying extra for Bloody Harvest. So what all is this going to include? There's a new area, there are new missions, new challenges, new enemies, and of course, new loot. That's going to include legendary loot and anointed loot. More info on that later in the video. The thing for this one to remember is that Bloody Harvest is time limited and will only last for a month and a half. So you have to do this while this exists in the game. You can't wait and do Bloody Harvest years later like you could with the previous games. You have to get whatever you want in terms of this loot before the event ends, or you won't ever get it. Now, they may bring it back next year. They may bring back some of that loot. We don't really know. That's all speculation at this point. But we do know for sure that this is time limited and will go away. Now, if you hear that and it makes you worried that everything's going to be that way, Paul Sage, the creative director, confirmed that not all content will work like this. This is a seasonal event that they're trying out, and they may change how they do this stuff in the future, but not everything will be time limited. Now let's dive into further details on the event. First off, this is what Bloody Harvest is going to provide. New haunted enemies will appear around the galaxy, and I assume that means on different planets you're going to see these special haunted enemies, and if you kill them, they will release ghosts, and they will also drop a currency called hectoplasm. But also there is a new debuff in the game called Terror, and this is supposed to be a mechanic that Gearbox has spent a lot of time on, at least it sounds like they have. This will obscure your vision, and it'll lower your handling, accuracy, and spread on your weapons. So essentially, this affects weapon sway and how you're aiming. So it's going to be something you're going to have to deal with. The main boss of this event will have a terror mechanic, so you'll be affected by this. Maybe we'll have to switch around our skill trees and so on and so forth. But also, they hinted that gear can help with terror, and anointed gear earned in this event will take terror and turn it to your benefit. So that'll be really interesting. We'll get to meet a new NPC for this event named Maurice. Now, Maurice is a Saurian, which is the same creature species that Tannis slid out of at the very beginning of Borderlands 3. Of course, except this one is alive and will speak to us, and he will appear on Sanctuary 3. He's going to be the one that introduces us to Bloody Harvest, and that's where we'll turn in our hectoplasm currency again that you earn from killing haunted enemies in this event for rewards. We don't know what those rewards are going to be. If I had to guess, it's probably like anointed weapons. And so this is going to be very similar to turning in Iridium to Crazy Earl, or using the veteran rewards machine in order to get anointed weapons. In addition to these haunted enemies on other planets, we're also going to have a brand new area called Heck. So, you know, kind of like hell, but it's called Heck. And that's where the final boss of the event is going to be the Baron of the Bloody Harvest. And we know who that boss is going to be. It's going to be Captain Haunt, which is just a haunted version of Captain Trant. Obviously, he's going to have new mechanics that are themed around the event. They're going to be spooky. He's going to have a new skin. He's going to look skeletal and super scary. Leading up to that final boss will be a set of story missions, and Paul Sage gave an estimate, and this was a very loose suggestion, not a hard guarantee by any means, that it'll take 2 to 3 hours in order to get through these missions, but that's not counting challenges and other things that are going to send you around the galaxy to go and fight those haunted enemies. But this is what the main offering is going to be. 2 to 3 hours, you'll get to Captain Haunt, you'll kill him, and that'll be the end of the main content outside of grinding for better loot and, finding all those haunted enemies and doing all of the challenges for cosmetics. Speaking of, Bloody Harvest will offer a set of new cosmetics. We're gonna get an Echo skin, which I've really enjoyed these so far. We're gonna get a weapon trinket, and it looks like a little, I don't know what you call these, like a voodoo head that hangs from your weapon. That'll be really cool. And then we'll get skins for each Vault Hunter, and including Iron Bear. If you're running Moe's, Iron Bear will have a fun skin to match that as well. And then we'll get a weapon skin that you'll be able to throw on any weapon that you're using. Again, it's important to reiterate that these are tied to challenges, so you're not going to get these just by playing through Bloody Harvest. You're going to have to hunt down this stuff, make sure that you're completing it, and make sure that you do it before Bloody Harvest ends, because it probably won't come back until next year. Let's dive into the loot we're going to be seeing. So first off, we're getting a set of new legendaries. We're going to have 2 legendary guns, a legendary shield, and a legendary grenade mod to grind for. We also will have a set of anointed loot, which will take the terror debuff and modify it so it uses it to your advantage. So if you are affected by terror, you get bonus fire rate or something like that. We have some screenshots and an unlisted video that shows off a new anointed shotgun. At least that's what it looks like to me. And you could say this looks like the new legendary weapons, but I don't believe that to be the case. I think this is just the new weapon skin that's going to be event-wide that you'll have to earn via challenges. And then again, this is an anointed shotgun. It looks maybe like a Hyperion or a Tediore shotgun to me. And it's called Fearmonger. So there's one guaranteed, named piece of loot that we will find in this DLC. Since this is an anointed piece of gear, we should expect this to take terror and use it to our advantage, make it a plus instead of a minus. So once you're using this anointed gear, you'll be able to tear through the haunted enemies, and especially Captain Haunt. That is all of the information for Bloody Harvest that we know so far from the Borderlands show. So that's it for that portion of this video, but there was also a viewer question section of the stream that had some awesome info that I wanted to share with you guys. So if that's what you came for, just the Bloody Harvest info, that's pretty much it. Let's talk about this extra stuff that was covered. A big topic that I'm glad was discussed was performance issues, because it's really affecting people across all platforms, even myself on PC. My PC is a beast. It should be able to run this thing on Ultra, but I get a lot of hitches and slowdowns and stuff where it feels like, this really shouldn't be happening. But I know there's a lot of frame rate drops and other issues on consoles. So they definitely addressed that and said that they're working to fix that stuff around the clock, and hopefully it will be addressed sooner rather than later. And they also talked about balancing loot drops. I've seen a lot on Twitter lately where people are saying there's so many legendaries that are dropping, especially if you run a level 50 on Mayhem 3. It's just kind of a piece of cake because you can break the game with certain builds and just farm legendary after legendary after legendary for hours on end with no sweat. So they do see that, and they recognize that this is an issue that maybe the top 2% of people who play Borderlands will run into, because, we're streamers, we're people who are playing and putting in hundreds upon hundreds of hours into this game. It's only going to affect us, but at the same time, for the long-term health of the game, it makes sense for them to knock that down. So that's why they addressed that in the recent hotfix patch. They also said that for the moment, we are not going to get any more Vault Hunters. We are stuck with Zane, Moe's, Amara, and Flak. There are not plans to include more Vault Hunters in the game, so we're not going to have a Gage or a Krieg kind of character added later. And he said that this is mainly because of the data that Gearbox has collected. People seem to stick with their main Vault Hunter. They'll bounce around and test out other Vault Hunters maybe for a few hours, but they always come back to their favorite and just keep grinding and playing through the end game with that specific Vault Hunter. So that was an interesting bit. I'm not too upset about this or anything like that. I tend to agree. I'm going to pick a few and really just focus on those, but I don't need to have a 5th or a 6th Vault Hunter. Maybe my mind will change a few years down the road. Maybe theirs will too, but for the moment, that is their plan. Paul Sage also addressed Fiona, a character from Tales from the Borderlands, and he said that he can't talk about Fiona, but that to me suggested that she's probably definitely coming. I'm sure they would come out and definitively say, we're not going to see Fiona. She's not in the game, because people notice, Reese obviously is in the game. We see him for a good portion of the story on Promethea. So people are like, what about Fiona? And Paul essentially said, I can't talk about that. So to me, that means she's probably coming in a future event or a future piece of DLC. There was a viewer question about Borderlands coming to Nintendo Switch, and all he could say was never say never. And it's hard for me to judge his reactions, whether that means, yeah, it's definitely coming and they have plans, or no, it's actually not coming. Never say never means maybe. So I would just leave it at that. Someone asked about vault raids in Borderlands 3. Are those coming? Can we expect them? And Paul went into detail with what he calls takedowns. And takedowns are Gearbox's version of a raid for Borderlands 3. They're tuned for multiple people. You can try and solo it, but it is designed for a group. I'm sure that won't hold people back on trying to solo it. But so think about like Terramorphous, something like that, where it's added after the fact and people go there. It's got insane loot that just changes the game, and people will be farming it for years. That is what's going to be coming in the future. Finally, there was a question about crossplay, and Paul said maybe in the future. He kind of joked around about it and said it's something that's great for the industry. Gamers want it. Developers want it. He's happy that first-party, platforms are on board with it now, but it's something that takes a lot of time. There's still a lot of cracks and stuff to solve with it. So it sounds like they want it to be rock solid before they dive into it, but perhaps it's coming in the future. There was really no firm yes or no on that question. If I had to guess, probably down the line, but it's probably not a main, issue for Gearbox. They're not focusing on bringing crossplay, which I'd like to see the opposite. I'd love to see that be a focus, because I'd love to be able to play with friends on Xbox, but when I really want to level and enjoy it for myself, play on PC. So maybe in the future. All right, that's everything you need to know about Bloody Harvest and the Borderlands show. We'll have another one coming in mid-late October, so expect me to cover that too as we get closer to the first DLC with Bloody Harvest. So in the comment section, tell me what you're most excited to do in Bloody Harvest. Personally, I can't wait to play around with the new terror mechanic. I feel like that'll really open up a lot of builds and let us customize our playstyles in new and unique ways that we haven't done before. So share your thoughts below. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button and remember to subscribe and hit the bell for more Borderlands 3 content. If you want to stay up to date and join my community, follow me on Twitter and Instagram and join my Discord server. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.